Could Texas turn blue in 2024? Early voting turnout shows a massive surge across Texas, hinting at the possibility of a long-anticipated political shift. With its 40 electoral votes, the second most in the nation after California, Texas holds immense strategic weight in the 2024 presidential election. Both Democrats and Republicans recognize Texas as more than just a swing state. Its sheer electoral power could shape the overall outcome. For Democrats, flipping Texas from red to blue would signal a monumental shift in U.S. politics, making the Republican path to the White House significantly more difficult. The last time Texas leaned Democratic was nearly 50 years ago, so a change now would break a decades-long GOP stronghold and could cement long-term momentum for the Democrats. Meanwhile, Republicans are fiercely defending their hold on Texas, knowing that a loss here would be a critical blow. With Kamala Harris and Donald Trump vying for Texas voters, the state has become a focal point in the national election. Intense efforts are underway on both sides, as early voting has brought record-breaking numbers. 18 million Americans have already cast ballots nationwide, and Texas alone has seen a turnout that surprised poll workers, who witnessed long lines outside polling stations from day one. This overwhelming response may suggest renewed energy among voters eager to influence Texas's direction, as the stakes are unusually high this year. Flipping the state from red to blue would have profound implications for both state and national politics, particularly in the presidential race. A Democratic Texas would narrow the path to a Republican White House considerably, altering election strategies across the board. Recognizing this, both parties have invested millions in Texas, hoping to rally voters and secure crucial support in a state that has leaned right for nearly 30 years. The Democratic Party is experiencing new momentum, especially around Colin Allred, a Democratic Senate hopeful challenging incumbent Ted Cruz. Allred's story resonates with many Texans. A former NFL linebacker and civil rights lawyer, he was born and raised in Texas by a single mother. He now represents a potential shift in Texas politics. His approach contrasts sharply with Ted Cruz, who has faced criticism for decisions like traveling to Cancun during Texas's 2021 winter crisis. Allred's appeal has energized voters across the state, especially on issues like healthcare, abortion rights, and gun control. One of the most striking indicators of Democratic momentum is the demographic shift. Younger and minority voters, especially women, have voiced concerns over recent legislation affecting reproductive rights. For example, the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade has galvanized a significant segment of the population that feels directly affected by Texas's conservative laws. These issues have motivated not only long-standing Democrats, but also independents and moderates, driving record numbers to participate in early voting. Beyond Texas, women voters are poised to play a critical role in the 2024 presidential election across the U.S. Democratic strategists, mindful of former President Trump's ability to outperform poll predictions, are focusing on a surge of ghost voters. Young women who might defy polling expectations by showing up in substantial numbers. Democrats have mobilized a significant grassroots campaign focused on increasing voter registration, particularly among Latino voters and in underrepresented areas. However, the Latino vote presents a complex challenge. While Latinos have historically leaned Democratic, recent trends reveal a growing openness to Republican messaging, particularly in economically focused or socially conservative communities. In South Texas, for instance, Republicans gained ground in 2022, even flipping a predominantly Latino district. This shift has complicated Democratic efforts to secure this crucial voting bloc. Nonetheless, the significance of Latino voters is undeniable. In 2024, over 36 million Latinos are eligible to vote nationwide, with 6.5 million of them in Texas alone. Despite increased mobilization, Democratic support among Latinos is nuanced. Many prioritize issues such as economic security, education, healthcare, and border security. Republicans' focus on economic and family values has resonated in areas where small businesses, border issues, and community welfare are central to daily life. Democratic candidates like Allred aim for an inclusive campaign, appealing to a broad spectrum of voters, from working-class families to urban professionals. His rallies, where supporters wear Allred for Senate shirts, reflect the determination of voters disheartened by Beto O'Rourke's close loss to Cruz in 2018. Many see Allred's campaign as a second chance for Texas Democrats to capture a Senate seat and make strides toward broader electoral influence. However, a key question remains. Even if some Republicans are willing to cross party lines, will they be numerous enough to make a difference? This election season has seen high-profile Republicans openly endorsing Democratic candidates like Kamala Harris and Colin Allred. If these endorsements reach the polls, they could signify a tectonic shift in Texas politics. Yet, some remain cautious, doubting that a substantial number of Republicans will switch allegiances given the GOP's dominance in Texas over the last decade. In Tarrant County, a major influence in Texas politics, GOP Chair Beau French stirred controversy with a derogatory post, mocking those with differing views. This inflammatory post exemplifies a growing rift within GOP leadership, alienating potential crossover voters who are turned off by extreme partisanship. Adding to the uncertainty is Texas's robust early voting turnout. On Day 7 of early voting, which fell on a Sunday, 5.4 million ballots were cast, representing over 29% of registered voters. Data from early voting shows an urban-rural divide, with urban areas, usually Democratic-leaning, seeing increased turnout, while rural, predominantly Republican areas have seen a decline. Harris County in particular has been a focal point with high early turnout and signs of Democratic support. Efforts to restrict voting access in Texas have further complicated the election. In 2021, state legislators sought to limit voting rights, including an attempt to ban Sunday voting. Although the ban didn't pass, shortened voting hours may have limited turnout among certain demographics, particularly black voters. In the final push, Republican figures filed last-minute lawsuits questioning Harris County's voter rolls. Although unlikely to succeed, these lawsuits could deter voters. In sum, the unprecedented turnout and shifting voter dynamics suggest Texas's electoral patterns may be changing, adding further unpredictability to an already volatile election. Whether these changes will be enough to flip Texas remains to be seen. Texas is on track to approach a projected 12 million voters in the 2024 election. In contrast to 2020, when the pandemic led to a significant increase in mail-in voting, this election season has seen a return to in-person early voting, with over 95% of votes cast in person. This shift could benefit Democrats, as high urban turnout rates have historically aligned more with Democratic votes in Texas. The in-person turnout could give the Harris campaign a critical boost, particularly in urban centers like Harris County. Democratic efforts have also seen an unusual alignment of celebrity endorsements, with figures like Taylor Swift and Beyoncé mobilizing young female voters, a key demographic that Democrats are heavily courting. Swift's recent public endorsement of Harris encouraged her 272 million followers to register, leading to an estimated 500,000 new registrations. Such endorsements, combined with Harris's campaign efforts to reach young female voters through digital platforms, may help galvanize a demographic that has historically shown lower voter turnout. Celebrity endorsements and social media campaigns are believed to energize new registrants and irregular voters, with figures like Swift drawing millions of young women to consider civic participation. Swift's endorsement of Harris led to nearly 500,000 new voter registrations nationwide, underscoring the power of this demographic. Organizations like Supermajority, which focuses on women's political empowerment, have reported renewed optimism and civic engagement among young women since Harris became the Democratic nominee. According to Jessica Herrera, senior director at Supermajority, new surveys show that young women feel increasingly positive about their futures and the future of the country. Herrera notes that this hopeful outlook is essential for sustaining civic engagement, suggesting that young female voters could have a substantial impact on Election Day. Texas remains in a delicate balancing act. While urban turnout is high, rural turnout is still expected to increase as Election Day approaches, and rural Texas is largely Republican territory. If the GOP mobilizes effectively in these areas, they could counteract the urban surge, emphasizing the critical role that these last days of the campaign will play in determining voter behavior. Observers note that even a slight increase in rural turnout could tip Texas back toward its conservative roots, reaffirming its reputation as a GOP stronghold. Skepticism about crossover votes continues to prevail, especially given the GOP's deep-rooted loyalty in rural regions and counties where Trump-aligned Republicans dominate. Analysts agree that while there is some disillusionment within the GOP, it may not be enough to cause a substantial shift toward Democrats, despite high-profile endorsements and discontent with the party's current direction. As Election Day draws closer, the atmosphere in Texas reflects broader national concerns. This election cycle could redefine Texas politics, or it could reinforce the status quo, with urban areas leaning Democratic and rural areas consolidating Republican support. The outcome may hinge on which side mobilizes more effectively, making Texas a critical battleground in this highly polarized political environment. The numbers remain close. Polls indicate a neck-and-neck race, with one survey giving all red a 1-point edge, while others place Cruz ahead by up to 7 points. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are similarly locked in a tight race in Texas. For Democrats, the support from early voters is an encouraging sign, but it is by no means a guarantee. As both Harris and Allred work to sway undecided voters, they face a Texas electorate that is deeply divided and skeptical of both major party candidates. Many undecided voters express concern over Harris's perceived liberalism, while Trump's erratic political style also raises doubts. Economic issues add further complexity as voters prioritize concerns over inflation, a domain where Republicans traditionally receive more trust. As early voting intensifies, Texas stands on the brink of a possible political transformation. Record turnout and shifting demographics suggest that the Lone Star State could defy decades of electoral history, potentially altering the balance of power in the Senate and creating a new trajectory for national politics. For Texas Democrats, the stakes are historic, and the potential rewards are immense. A victory in Texas could signify a lasting shift toward Democratic influence, but the outcome is still far from certain. With days to go before Election Day, Texas voters face a pivotal decision that could reshape both their state and the nation. Texas has experienced significant demographic changes over the past 2 decades. Rapid population growth in major metropolitan areas, especially Houston, Dallas, Austin, and San Antonio, has brought in a more diverse and younger population, often more progressive than Texas's traditional conservative base. According to recent census data, Texas has added over 4 million residents since 2010, with a substantial portion of this increase coming from Latino, Black, and Asian communities, as well as younger professionals attracted by Texas's economic opportunities. This demographic shift has gradually changed the cultural and political landscape of Texas, with urban centers becoming more liberal. Millennials and Gen Z now represent a larger share of the electorate, and issues like reproductive rights, social justice, climate action, and gun control resonate strongly among these voters. For Democrats, this is an opportunity to engage a new base of voters eager for policies that differ from Texas's historically conservative approach. However, translating demographic shifts into voting power has proven challenging, as shown by Beto O'Rourke's near-miss Senate campaign in 2018. The Latino population, now 40% of Texas's residents, holds particular sway. Traditionally, Latino voters have leaned Democratic, but recent years have seen a more complex alignment, especially in South Texas, where some Latinos have leaned toward the GOP due to concerns about border security, economic policy, and conservative values. Despite Republican gains, Democrats believe they can mobilize this group by focusing on issues like healthcare, education, and labor rights, which are often top priorities for Latino communities. Urban areas in Texas, notably Harris County, Houston, Dallas County, Travis County, Austin, and Bexar County, San Antonio, lean Democratic and have seen record-breaking turnout in early voting. Democrats are hopeful that these high turnout numbers represent not just increased enthusiasm, but also a potentially decisive swing in key urban precincts. In contrast, rural Texas remains solidly Republican. Rural counties, where residents are often more conservative and socially traditional, have shown consistent support for Republican candidates and conservative policies, especially around issues like gun rights and border security. Republican campaigns have historically relied on rural voters to offset urban Democratic strongholds, and the 2024 election will be no exception. However, data from early voting shows a concerning trend for the GOP. While urban turnout is surging, rural areas have seen a decrease in early voter participation. Political analysts speculate this could be due to a few factors, such as dissatisfaction with current GOP candidates or simply a sense of complacency that Texas will remain red. Democrats hope to exploit this gap by maximizing urban turnout and expanding their reach in suburban counties that have been trending blue. Will this year mark the start of a blue Texas, or will Republicans maintain their hold on one of the country's most valuable electoral prizes? Only time will tell. If this deep dive into Texas's potential shift toward the Democrats and the early voting surge favoring Kamala Harris caught your interest, make sure to hit that like button. We're here to bring you the news that matters, the moments that define our times, and the debates that shape our future. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.